The night was warm, the kind of summer evening when teenagers gathered with friends, thinking only about the future. Ahead, Lauren Ashley had just finished her shift at the mall. She drove off. Her plan simple, her world still full of promise, but somewhere between routine and familiarity, everything changed. She stopped at a house she had been to many times before, a place that should have felt safe. Inside those walls, something unthinkable happened. By morning, the quiet town of Wayland would wake to a nightmare no one could have imagined. Lauren Ashley was born on April 1st, 1993 in Boston, Massachusetts to Mary and Malcolm Ashley. Both of her parents were teachers devoted to their only child, and from the beginning, Lauren was the center of their world. They raised her on the values of honesty, compassion, and integrity, hoping she would grow into a kind and principled young woman. In 2006, Mary and Malcolm divorced, sharing custody of Lauren. Even through the challenges of separation, they stayed united in their love and support for their daughter. By her teenage years, Lauren was already living a life filled with energy, purpose, and achievement. She was never one to sit still. Lauren threw herself into nearly everything. She sang in a local music group, played tennis and soccer, joined the church choir, and performed with the youth symphony orchestra. She worked summers as a camp counselor, and at the local arts center, she even landed the lead role in the play Annie. Though she stood just 4 feet 11 inches in tall, her presence was unforgettable. Her strong voice and vibrant charm made her a natural performer. Singing quickly became her greatest passion, and she brought that passion to nearly every school and community event. The moment she became the lead singer of her high school's a cappella group was one of the happiest in her young life. Lauren's devotion went beyond the arts. She cared deeply about helping others and often dedicated her time to community service. At just 12 years old, she traveled to New Orleans to aid victims of Hurricane Katrina. She returned twice more with friends to help flood survivors, proof of a maturity and compassion rare for someone so young. She always put the needs of others first, and her warmth and generosity touched parents, classmates, teachers, and even strangers. At one high school, Lauren excelled, both in academics and in student life. She joined sports teams, participated in concerts and competitions, and played a key role in charitable events. Her peers admired her sincerity and openness, often turning to her for advice or comfort. By her senior year, she had become something of a trendsetter, admired for her energy, style, and ability to connect with people. It was also during these years that Lauren began her first serious relationship with Nathaniel Fuja, a classmate she had known since childhood. Nathaniel, or Nathan as most called him, was the star of the school's football team. Tall, athletic, and popular, he had the attention of many, but he chose Lauren. For the first 2 years, Lauren and Nathaniel's relationship was full of happy, carefree moments. They went to games, spent afternoons with friends, and shared the excitement of being young and in love. Many people saw them as the perfect match, but as time went on, the cracks began to show. Their relationship grew more unstable, marked by arguments, reconciliations, and repeated breakups. At times, Nathaniel was jealous and possessive, frustrated that Lauren seemed to devote so much of her time and energy to others. By her senior year, Lauren was focused on her future. She had big dreams for herself, and she knew it was time to prepare for college. She applied to Elon University in North Carolina while Nathaniel chose Trinity College in Connecticut, where he had been offered the chance to play football. For Lauren, this stage of life felt like a turning point, a chance to step into adulthood, explore new opportunities, and live more freely. Her friends, aware of the tension in her relationship, supported her decision to move on together. They even created a list of reasons she should end things with Nathan: his quick temper, his jealousy, his sometimes aggressive behavior, and his lack of respect even toward his own mother. After much reflection, Lauren made up her mind. On her birthday in April 2011, she broke up With Nathan, she described that day as one of the best of her life. With college just around the corner, the timing felt right. It was time for a new chapter. But for Nathaniel, the breakup was devastating. What felt to Lauren like a fresh start was for him a painful ending. His dreams of football at Trinity no longer seemed to matter. Once known as an energetic and ambitious young man, he began to withdraw into himself, unable to let go of what he had lost. In the months after their breakup, Nathaniel's life took a sharp downward turn. He spent most of his days slouched on the couch, distant and withdrawn. Slipping further into depression, he cut himself off from friends and began drinking heavily. Marijuana became a daily habit. Lauren, even though she had ended the relationship, still worried about him. She didn't like seeing someone she had once been so close to spiraling. At times, she asked her friends if she should reach out, if she should try to help him. Every time they told her not to, reminding her that any contact might give Nathan hope their relationship could begin again. By the summer of 2011, Lauren was looking ahead. She had graduated high school and wanted to savor her last months at home, surrounded by family and friends before heading off to college. To celebrate, her friends organized a massive party under a large tent where nearly 150 students and recent graduates gathered. Music played, people danced, laughter filled the air. Nathaniel was there, too, already drunk when he stumbled up to Lauren, begging for another chance. Lauren stood firm. She told him it was over, that there was nothing left to discuss. They had gone through the same arguments countless times, and she was determined to move on. But Nathan couldn't accept it. Fueled by alcohol and jealousy, he followed her around the party, refusing to let her out of his sight, determined to stop her from dancing with anyone else. At one point, Lauren broke down in tears, telling a friend that Nathan just wouldn't leave her alone. His anger only escalated. Finally, in a fit of rage, he slammed his fist into one of the tent poles, sending the entire structure collapsing onto the crowd. The tent was quickly lifted back up, but the mood had shifted. The celebration was ruined. Friends shouted at Nathan to leave, but the damage was already done. Later that night, Lauren confided in her mother about his behavior. She explained how he refused to accept the breakup, how he couldn't stand to see her happy without him. For a short while, things quieted down. Lauren kept herself busy, taking a summer job at a clothing store in the local mall. On July 3rd, 2011, she arrived for her morning shift at 10 o'clock. EM security cameras captured her entering the building at 9:45, riding the escalator up. At 6:45 that evening, she was seen leaving work while talking on the phone. That brief image would be the last time anyone saw her alive. She had planned to meet friends for a walk after work, but she never showed. This wasn't like Lauren. She always let people know if plans changed. Her father was especially worried. He knew she was supposed to head home first, change her clothes, and then meet up. But she never made it home. To him, it was instantly clear something was very wrong. Without hesitation, he called the police. That same night, police found her red Jeep parked at Valentine Beach. The windows were rolled down. Her bag and laptop were inside, but Lauren was gone. When Malcolm heard about the discovery, he rushed straight to the beach. He ran from the vehicle to the water, torch in hand, scanning the shoreline as though he could still save her. Friends, terrified by what they heard, gathered there too. They stayed all night by the shore, waiting, hoping she might walk out of the darkness. None of them not yet allowed themselves to believe she could have been harmed. Police began questioning those closest to Lauren, looking for anyone who might have wanted to hurt her. At first, no one could think of a single person. But when investigators pressed further, they learned she had recently ended a long-term relationship. Even then, Lauren's friends insisted Nathaniel couldn't possibly be responsible. He was moody, yes, angry about the breakup, certainly, but dangerous. That was something they couldn't imagine. For investigators, jealousy and a painful breakup were warning signs. They knew from experience how often such Emotions could fuel tragedy. Nathaniel Fudja was already on their radar, and that very evening they went to his home. There, officers spoke with Nathan and his mother, Beth. Nathan claimed he had been at home the entire time, offering an alibi that was far from convincing. He admitted to seeing Lauren briefly that day, saying she pulled up outside his house, never left her car, and that they shared only a short, awkward exchange before she drove away. At first glance, his story sounded plausible, but police were aware of the toll the breakup had taken on him. Nathan had isolated himself, slipping into depression. He no longer went out, stopped training, and abandoned the game he had once loved. Beth, deeply worried, had taken him to therapy, but it seemed to do little good. In her desperation, she even visited the mall where Lauren worked, quietly, hoping to find a way to reconnect them, to help her son heal. But before dawn the next morning, everything changed. A cyclist riding along a quiet stretch near the highway noticed something unusual in the marshland. Floating in the water was the body of a young woman. It was Lauren, Ashley, just 5 miles from town. Lauren's body was discovered about 30 feet from the road. When detectives pulled back her collar, the wound was obvious. Her throat had been slashed. Tangled in her hair was an elastic cord, evidence of further violence. She had been brutally attacked. Her body was rushed to the medical examiner's office, while her father, Malcolm, clung to an impossible hope. He prayed it wasn't his daughter. But when the time came, he was asked to identify the body of his only child. Lauren had just turned 18. She was vibrant, gifted, and at the edge of a promising future. Now Malcolm was forced to face the unimaginable and deliver the devastating news to Mary, his ex-wife. The tragedy shook the community. Friends, who had once admired Lauren and Nathan as a couple, couldn't comprehend it. They insisted Nathan would never harm the girl he had loved so deeply. But police saw the situation differently. They learned how dramatically Nathan had changed since the breakup. He was no longer the smiling football star admired by classmates and cheered on by fans. Instead, he had withdrawn into bitterness. Beth told officers she had tried to intervene by reaching out to Lauren, believing that a show of friendship might help lift her son's spirits. Perhaps she hadn't realized how far things had deteriorated. What she may not have known was that Lauren, out of kindness, had agreed to meet Nathan briefly on July 3rd. She had no plans of rekindling their relationship, only of helping him move past his sadness. Surveillance footage confirmed Lauren leaving the mall after her shift, phone in hand. Records showed she was speaking to Nathan. She then sent a single text to him here. That message, sent at 7:05 p.m., was the last one she would ever send. She planned to stay only a few minutes before heading home to change and meet her friends, but she never made it back. Nathan's parents weren't home that evening. The last place Lauren was seen alive was at his house. For investigators, it was the first solid lead. On July 4th, when police returned to question Nathan again, he had vanished, and his parents claimed not to know where he was. With suspicion mounting, investigators sought evidence. They quickly obtained a warrant to search the Fudja home. Inside the Fudja home, investigators quickly uncovered a series of disturbing clues. Alongside the elastic cord that had been tangled in Lauren's hair, they found blood in several places, smeared on the garage floor, on a doorknob, and inside both the kitchen and bathroom sinks, where it looked as though someone had tried to wash it away. In the basement, a black sports bag was discovered. Inside was a pair of trainers caked in mud. In the attic, above Nathan's bedroom, detectives unearthed another pair of shoes along with blood-stained boots and clothing. The mud on the trainers was immediately suspicious, appearing to match the marshy terrain where Lauren's body had been recovered. Laboratory testing soon confirmed it. The mud came from the same swamp, and the blood on Nathan's clothing belonged to Lauren Ashley. With that evidence, police moved quickly. Nathan Fudja was placed on the wanted list. He was located hours later at his cousin's home in a nearby town. Shortly after midnight on July 4th, 2011, the 18-year-old football player, was arrested and charged with the murder of his former girlfriend. When officers took him into custody at his aunt's house, Nathan remained silent. During questioning, he offered no explanation, no defense, and showed no emotion. This unsettling detachment would continue for months. On August 23, 2011, Nathan appeared in court for a preliminary hearing. When asked for his plea, he whispered not guilty, so softly it was barely audible. Prosecutors quickly suspected his defense team would pursue an insanity strategy. Nathan was charged with first-degree murder, along with assault and battery with a dangerous weapon. As the hearings moved forward, unsettling details about Lauren's final hours began to surface. Investigators revealed that she had endured more injuries than first believed. After her body was discovered, one of Nathan's cousins contacted him. His reply was chilling. He claimed the murder weapon would never be found. He went on to admit that he had taken Lauren's red Jeep to the town beach parking lot, brushing it off with the explanation that he needed a break and simply wanted to spend time with her. The prosecution used these statements to argue that Nathan's actions were deliberate. They requested that he be held without bail, and the court agreed. As pre-trial hearings unfolded, still more troubling history came to light. In 2009, during one of Nathan and Lauren's many breakups, she attended a dance with friends. There, she danced and shared a kiss with another young man. Nathan suddenly appeared, shoving the boy and threatening to slit his throat if he ever went near Lauren again. While the incident eventually faded into the background, it revealed how possessive and volatile Nathan could become. When investigators later examined the wounds on Lauren's body, Nathan's earlier threat carried a haunting resonance. It became clear to prosecutors that his anger toward anyone who came close to Lauren had long been simmering. By the time Nathan's trial opened on February 13, 2013, 18 months had passed since Lauren's death. From the start, the defense focused on one central argument: Nathan was legally insane. His attorney admitted outright that Nathan had killed Lauren, but insisted the critical questions were how and why. They argued Nathan hadn't stalked Lauren after graduation. He hadn't driven past her home or harassed her with calls and texts. Instead, he had withdrawn from everyone, avoiding friends, skipping practices, and isolating himself completely. Witnesses, including former teammates and teachers, confirmed the dramatic change in his behavior in the months leading up to the crime. The defense's case would hinge on this narrative of withdrawal and mental decline. But for the prosecution, the evidence painted a different picture, not of a young man lost in illness, but of someone whose jealousy had spiraled into deadly violence. The defense built its case around Nathaniel's mental health. His lawyer argued that he was suffering from a serious psychiatric disorder, not simply the anguish of a teenage breakup. His mother, Beth, had convinced him to see a psychiatrist who diagnosed him with severe clinical depression. According to the defense, this condition was compounded by repeated head injuries from years of high school football. The breakup with Lauren, they said, had triggered a crisis that spiraled out of control. The psychiatrist had recommended medication and therapy, but Nathan refused both. The defense claimed that on the evening of July 3, 2011, when Lauren went to his home, Nathan suffered a manic episode. They argued that he was unable to comprehend or control his actions. In the garage, during what was supposed to be a brief conversation, Nathan grabbed an elastic cord and wrapped it around Lauren's neck. From there, his actions escalated: strangulation, followed by a fatal slash to her throat. The defense insisted he acted without awareness, detached from reality, and that the crime was the result of insanity. The prosecution told a very different story. They argued that Nathaniel had deliberately lured Lauren to his home because he couldn't cope with losing her. Phone records showed he had called her multiple times that day, including as she left her job. Prosecutors said Nathan coerced her into stopping by, knowing his parents wouldn't be there. Once inside, They claimed he carried out a planned attack, not a spontaneous breakdown. The autopsy revealed more than strangulation and a throat wound. Lauren had defensive injuries, proof she had fought back. After killing her, Nathan removed his blood-soaked boots, changed into tennis shoes, and went to Wantown Beach. There, he abandoned her red Jeep, throwing the keys into a storm drain. He then returned home on foot, placed Lauren's body in his car, and drove to a swamp, believing the muck would swallow her remains. He waded more than 30 feet into the wetlands before leaving her there. Later that night, witnesses saw him driving naked, windows down, blasting music. Back at home, he cleaned the garage, washed away blood, and hid his shoes and clothing. Behavior prosecutors said clearly showed planning and awareness of guilt. The defense brought in a forensic psychiatrist who testified that Nathan was incapable of knowing his actions were wrong. Severe depression, football, related head trauma, and substance abuse had distorted his reality. This, they argued, was not a young man capable of calculated murder, but one lost in a psychotic state. The trial was agonizing. The medical examiner told the court that Lauren remained alive for several minutes, bleeding to death after the strangulation and throat wound. In the gallery, her mother sat quietly, devastated. On March 7, 2013, after a full day of deliberation, the jury returned a verdict: guilty on all counts. Nathaniel Fudja was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole, the mandatory sentence for first-degree murder in Massachusetts. In the aftermath, Malcolm and Mary refused to let Lauren's memory fade. They created the Lauren Ashley Memorial Foundation, a nonprofit dedicated to causes their daughter had cared about: art, community service, and education. About healthy relationships, they turned their grief into a mission, teaching others about the dangers of breakup, violence, so no family would have to endure what they had suffered. But even years later, the case was not fully closed. In January 2024, the Massachusetts Supreme Court overturned a law requiring anyone under 20 at the time of their crime to serve life without parole. For the Ashleys, the change reawakened old wounds. They now fear that Nathan Fudja, who murdered their only child at 18, could one day be released. For them, true justice means he should remain behind bars for life. Thanks for tuning in to Crime Scene Stories. If you're intrigued by mysteries from around the world, subscribe and turn on the notification button now for more thrilling investigations.